All right, let's talk about literature reviews. If you're like most of us, you probably think of it as, that big summary you have to crank out before you get to the actual research. Well, I'm here to tell you that the game has totally changed. We're going to see how that humble lit review has transformed into a serious, powerful scientific method all on its own. So let's get into it. Yeah, this quote absolutely nails it. A high-quality literature review today isn't just a passive summary. It's not about an author's take or a quick tour of a few studies they liked. No way. It's evolved into a real, rigorous piece of science. I mean, think about it. It's got rules and standards that are just as strict as anything you'd find in a lab. So, okay, that sounds great, right? But here's the catch. The second you step into this world, you're hit with this absolute jungle of terminology. You've got systematic reviews, scoping reviews, integrative, narrative. I mean, where do you even begin? It can feel like a huge roadblock when you're just trying to figure out the right way to do your research. All right, section 1, the review revolution. So how do we even get here? Let's take a quick look at what sparked this huge shift.
It really boils down to a move from informal summaries to real scientific methods. The old way? Well, that was basically just a story told by the author. It was informal, often subjective, and it was super easy for their personal biases to color the whole thing. The new way is a complete 180. It's all about being structured, transparent so others can check your work, and reproducible, all designed from the ground up to stamp out as much bias as humanly possible. Okay, on to part 2, choosing your tool. So we've got this new world of structured reviews. The big question is, how do you navigate it? How do you actually pick the right one for your research? I think the absolute best way to wrap your head around this is to think of all these review types as different tools in a researcher's toolkit, right? I mean, you'd never use a sledgehammer to fix a watch. It's the exact same idea here. You've got to pick the right tool for the right job, and the job is your specific research question. So let's start by looking at 2 tools from opposite ends of that toolkit. First up, you have the classic narrative review. This is probably what most people think of. It's perfect for a broad overview, kind of like the background chapter of a thesis. But, this is a big but, its weakness is that it's pretty informal, which leaves it wide open to the author's bias. Then, all the way on the other end, you have the systematic review. And this thing is the polar opposite. It is hyper-structured, super rigorous, and it's designed with one mission in mind, to answer a very focused question with as little bias as possible. But here's the thing. Your toolkit isn't just those 2 extremes, and this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say you don't even have a specific question yet. You just want to get the lay of the land, to map out what's even out there on a topic. Well, for that job, you'd grab a scoping review. Or what if you need to pull together a bunch of different kinds of studies, say some quantitative and some qualitative? Then an integrative review is your go-to. See the pattern here? The key takeaway is that your goal, your primary purpose, is what tells you which tool to pick. Okay, for the rest of our time here, we're really going to zero in on the systematic review. And you might be asking, why that one? Well, it's because it's truly considered the gold standard. It's the benchmark for rigor. And honestly, the core principles it's built on, like transparency and fighting bias, they're basically the DNA for almost all the other modern review types. Which brings us to part 3, the gold standard roadmap. So we keep saying gold standard, but what does that actually mean? What does that rigor look like when the rubber hits the road? Okay, just take a look at this number, 1,100 plus. That's the average number of person hours it takes to do a single systematic review. Let that sink in. This is not something you knock out over a long weekend. This number tells you everything you need to know. A real systematic review is a massive, massive undertaking. It takes a team, and it takes serious, upfront planning. And here is the absolute, non-negotiable, #1 rule of doing a systematic review. You need an a priori protocol. Now, a priori is just a fancy term for beforehand. Before you even think about searching for a single paper, you have to write down your entire game plan, your search strategy, your rules for which studies get in and which get kicked out, everything. And you publicly register it online so everyone can see it. Why? It's simple. It stops you from changing the rules halfway through just because you don't like the results you're finding. It keeps the whole process honest. So the whole process really breaks down into 4 main steps. Step 1, you write that super detailed protocol we just talked about. Lock it in. Step 2, you launch this massive comprehensive search. We're talking multiple databases, trying to find everything. Step 3, you screen all those studies you found and, just as importantly, you judge their quality. And finally, Step 4, you pull all the findings together and report on everything you did, warts and all. Now, if there's one single thing that really separates a legit systematic review from just a summary, it's this. At every single critical point where a judgment call has to be made, like deciding if a study meets your criteria or pulling out the data or judging its quality, that work has to be done by 2 people working completely independently of each other. This is not a suggestion, it's a requirement. It is the single best way we have to catch errors and to make sure one person's individual bias doesn't steer the ship. All right, Section 4. Why this all matters. We've talked about 1,000+ hours, teams of reviewers, public protocols. So what's the point? After all that effort, what's the big payoff? Why should we care so much about this level of rigor? And here it is. This is the why. It all comes back to these fundamental principles. Transparency means you can see exactly what the researchers did every step of the way. Minimizing bias means we can actually trust the results a lot more. Setting the plan beforehand with that a priori protocol means no one's moving the goalposts. The comprehensive search means they tried to find everything, not just the easy stuff. And critically appraising the evidence means we understand the strengths and, just as importantly, the weaknesses of what they found. This whole package, this is what elevates a review from being just one person's opinion into a truly reliable piece of scientific evidence. So it all comes down to this one question for you. The next time you start a research project, is your literature review going to be just a summary of what came before, or is it going to be a genuine scientific contribution in its own right? Is it just background noise, or is it part of the science itself? You've seen the toolkit. The choice of what to build is up to you.